Good afternoon, or good evening, listening to us from here on this big, beautiful planet we call Earth. This is Michael Cross here with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we really encourage people to look deeper than what the mainstream media wants to feed you, what society says is the mainstream level of thought. Try to find out what it is out there that's trying to control you. As Edward Bernays said, most people are the product of people they've never heard of, but they take on the fads and the styles and the mannerisms of the general society. Okay, that's the topic I'm actually going to deal with tonight. Before I do that, if you're listening to this later on YouTube, please click on the subscription link on this video, as well as check out my website. Just follow that little arrow and follow my website and check out some of the articles that I've written about this and many other issues. Now, the thing I want to deal with right now is, what would we be like if we weren't programmed by society? Now, first of all, there's no way you're going to get around programming, okay? It's going to happen. It's just how much of it is going to happen and how aware can you be of the programming? How much of your decisions do you make that are free from someone else's influence? And I don't mean someone telling you what you should be doing, but the subtle stuff, because that's what's important. What gets into that subconscious mind and gets things going. It's just like your computer. I mean, if you've got a whole bunch of programs running in your hard drive at the same time, I don't know, you're trying to watch a movie online, the movie's going to lag and it's not going to come across very well. Okay, so try to find out what's in that hard drive. Now, the thing that inspired me to do this show is I was in a conversation with a young woman the other day, and we went into detail about, well, a lot of questions about where would we be if we weren't really programmed? And so the thing is, let's just say it's at a minimalist level. Let's say you move to Pitcairn Island, the whole Mutiny of the Bounty thing. I mean, there are actually people still live there, descendants of the Mutiny on the Bounty incident. But let's say you move there, or you move to the Faroe Islands. I had a son that visited the Faroe Islands. He said it's beautiful, but my gosh, it's isolated. You're like right out in the middle of the Atlantic. Big mountains, sheep, that's about it. But the thing is, let's say you moved your family there and you started raising children there. Now, first, you're going to have the viewpoints that you bring in, but let's say you try not to really go beyond just compassion and nurturing and raising your kids. And let's say you even bring them up in your particular religion. Okay? You bring them up in your particular religion, and you kind of try to leave the social conditioning at that. Now, let's pretend also that you do not allow them to have access to social media, television. You teach them at home. You try to be as unbiased as possible. How would a human being turn out? Now, let's look at several things. First of all, I am more a believer in John Locke than most of the other political philosophers. I do tend to believe that humans are naturally good. Now, that may go against, you watch TV and it's always the negative, fear porn, weather porn, things that get you like, look what's going on, and all excited. And yet, most of the time, most people are just going to work, living their lives just like you are. But, you get the case where, someone gets decapitated or something, clear across the country by some sort of freak accident. Or they get struck by lightning while hiking in the Yosemite National Park. Well, that gets brought in all the time. The world is horrible, and you go on social media and someone posts something, for everything from seeing some scene from, some country where they're boiling dogs alive to some scene where children are dying of starvation. And you start thinking, humans really suck. Okay, why can't we be as nice as animals? Well, I wouldn't really want to compare humans to animals. Have you ever seen chimpanzees when they hunt? They play as they yank the arms and legs off of small prey like monkeys. Okay, they make it a game. Okay, they really do. Bears, they eat their prey alive. Okay, dolphins, when they reproduce, you get several males gang up on one female. I mean, nature's not exactly this Disney show where everyone's cooperating and the fuzzy little bear and the fuzzy little rabbit are best of friends. It doesn't work that way. Humans are pretty dang nice, okay? We try to help other people. Most people feel compassionate to people they don't even know. They find out that, those news stories where you do see the starving kids. Often you're thinking, well, what could I do to help? Okay? We're not the kind of people that just like, oh, well, okay, well, I guess that's not really important. So actually, we are a very nice species. So I really, really contend with these people who are like, oh, why bring people into the world? Humans suck and everything. Don't be a nihilist. In nihilism, the idea that nothing really matters, when, that old 70s song, Dust in the Wind, said something about that sort of thought. The thing is that really, when that came out in Europe as a philosophy and people started embracing it, it really, according to at least the professor I had who was teaching about it, said the suicide rate really went up amongst young intellectuals. They're like, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, if that's your mindset, if your mindset says it doesn't matter, humans are just a nasty creature, that sort of thing, then you're going to see the negative in life. You're going to see all the bad things, not the good things, but the bad. And when you do see good things, you're going to question the motives. Okay? You're going to think, why is that person doing that? Oh, well, they just believe in God and therefore they're trying to make brownie points to get into heaven. Or, oh, they're doing something nice and heroic, saving a child from a burning car because it makes their ego feel good or something like that. You know what? Think about the fact that maybe humans just want to do good for the most part. When we do evil, we can be pretty nasty. You can drop bombs and blow people up. You can destroy things, ruin countries. Let's not get into the whole Hillary Clinton campaign. But anyway, what would, the whole neocon type way of looking at, saving countries by blowing them up and funding people that do nasty things. Okay? A lot of those people, I've talked to people from those regions of the world, and they're just kind of like, can't just America leave us and let us live in peace? Seriously. But anyway, the thing is, those people are not just statistics or just something to see on TV. And I think most Americans, if they were exposed to the truth of what's going on in these countries like Syria, Libya, and so forth, would be furious because there's that innate desire to do good. And the idea that someone is doing nasty things, your government, and doing it in your name, the American people, would make most people angry. And that's why, of course, television, distracts you. Now, let's go into that. What if you didn't have television? Do you realize how much brainwashing takes place with television? Do you know what it does? It slowly gets you used to an idea. It slowly desensitizes you. Now, desensitization operates like this. I read this article one time about this World War II soldier, and it was like during the Battle of the Bulge, and the Americans had been ordered, you take no prisoners. If you wound someone, just kill them. Just no prisoners. Okay? It was an all-out battle. And he came across a German soldier, and it was something like the German soldier was like just sitting there reading his Bible. And this guy was very Christian too. And the anguish he had, because he was, they sat down, they shared some food together, but then he actually pulled his gun and killed him because he'd been ordered to. And then after that, he became a pacifist. But he said that before that happened, the first sight of a human body just totally repulsed him. He was like losing it. But then as time went on, they were actually constructing, like, if you had to sit down to eat and it was frozen outside, you just take some dead bodies and use them as benches. That's what desensitization is. Now, you think about if you could go back through time and grab a 10-year-old, let's just say a 10-year-old from 1940, let's say. You go back, you get someone from 1940. And you bring this 10-year-old. Oh, while you're at it, you bring, let's say it's a girl, you bring her sister who's 15. And their brother who's 18. And you bring them to our present day and you set them down in front of the television. Now you're probably thinking, oh, they watched violent things. They watched Tom and Jerry. You had lots of violence on Tom and Jerry. But the thing is, it was an unrealistic violence. It was the kind of violence that you just knew it wasn't real. You didn't feel anything. And therefore, I don't think there's been any study that's actually suggested that watching something like Tom and Jerry or Bugs Bunny or something like that contributes to violence. Okay? There's not kids, watching Roadrunner and strapping a rocket to their rear end and seeing if they could win a race against their friends. Okay? It doesn't happen that way. But nowadays, we have realistic violence. We have the kind of violence that's not a robot or a cartoon figure or even a cowboy, from the far distant past. We have violence that's realistic. And we don't expect that to come across in our kids if they see it. And especially, now here's the important point, okay? Especially if there's no context to it. Now, my belief is ultimately it's less damaging to a kid to watch the Death Star blow up than it is to watch someone beat someone up, in a TV show. The latter is more realistic. It could be something that happens. You don't see a Death Star circling the Earth, okay? So it's not something that really connects. But if you actually just showed the average stuff that kids see today, what do they see? They see violence, okay? They see sex, a lot of it. It doesn't have to be, I'm not just talking about, you're talking about porn. No, I'm not talking about porn, okay? I'm talking about primetime TV. And it doesn't have to be guy, girl, 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 guy, girl, girl, whatever, doing it in bed and you watching it. It's just the mere fact that every joke on sitcoms seems to have a sexual connotation. Everyone's talking about, did you do it with her? Did you do it with him? Did you do this? And it's discussed continuously. All right? And it's blatant. It's right there in your face. What would those young people think? Even the 18-year-old guy would probably be like, this is trash. What do you do? Why are you letting your kids watch? Do kids watch this stuff? Okay? The violent stuff, the little girl, and even the 14, maybe even the 18-year-old would be just like, I gotta leave this. This is just too much. The thing is that television has created a situation where it goes into our subconscious. We feel it, even though we know it's not real. Okay? They've done studies where your hormone levels go up when you're watching a scary movie. Because deep down, there's a part of you that actually think you're being chased by a monster. Or a guy with a chainsaw. Or Hillary Clinton. It doesn't matter. You're going to believe that it is happening even though it isn't. All right? And you can be Mr. Smart. You can actually help make that movie and still be affected by it. Okay? So So let's just say we took television away. What kind of kid would we get? I think we would wind up with the values that those 1940s kids had. I think they would look at mom and dad. They would see what was appropriate, what kind of open displays of affection take place. If you have neighbors who are kind of committed to your same lifestyle, they're going to see the neighbors. They're going to kind of get this idea. And I think ultimately you would have I don't care what you talk about with hormones and stuff like that. I think that most young people, when they are teenagers, are kind of so nervous and scared about sex and sexuality and stuff like that, that if they've just been told, hey, avoid it till later or when you're married or whatever, they'll do it. But if you constantly feed them and bathe their brains in this idea that you're not a real girl unless you have a boyfriend, you're not a real guy unless you've screwed someone, I mean, seriously, that's what is, that's the message, okay? Over and over. We have jokes continuously in sitcoms about, oh, hey, look, Joe's a virgin. And he's only like 20, but he's a virgin. They're in the old days, there's people that never even kissed a woman until they were married, and maybe it might be when they're 25 or 30. Okay, that was not unheard of. Nowadays, you make people feel bad about it. It's like, but you live their fantasy. You live in their life. If you did not have television, if you did not have this constant, some radio show host used to call it Peep Show into Paradise. The television is programming you. And if you didn't have that, then your children would grow up more in a cooperative sense with the values you have. Because right now you may think, well, I only let my kids watch, kind of G-rated stuff. I only let my kids watch stuff that's, on children's networks. I only let and on and on and on. But there's a value system that permeates those. All right? There is a virus, just like if you stuck a USB stick into your computer that has a virus on it. It gets in, even though it may not be blatant. I mean, you may think, well, I don't want my kids watching R-rated movies, but sometimes the R-rated movie has less values that are contrary to your values than the G-rated movie, in which there's implications and innuendos and way more than that on primetime TV. Okay? And you may think, oh, it's just innocent fun. Well, you know what? When you're 30, 40, 50, 60, and your kids are watching television, you've been to a certain degree desensitized. And I'll give you an example. I don't care how you feel about gay rights, okay? If you're for or against, but you got to admit this is true. That in the 1980s, it would have been really controversial for a TV program that's designed for younger teens to have men and men making out, or women and women making out, or have a gay subplot. Now, that would have been shocking for those people. And now, it's not. In fact, even people that are like, they may just like, well, I wish they wouldn't have that in their attitude. But you're used to it now. You've been slowly gotten used to it, slowly over time. Your kids did not have that period of slowly getting used to it. They're just thrust right in. And then you're wondering, when your kid's going, well, Dad, why does our church hate gay people so much when they say that they don't want them to be married in their church? And you're going, whoa, where did you get that? Well, come on. They've had a lot of this permeating through. Okay? Again, whether you are gay, straight, bisexual, ambisexual, pansexual, I don't care. It's just a fact. It gets people used to it, okay? And therefore, it becomes part of their value system that they incorporate. If you're older, you may look back and think, well, this is really unusual. Things have really changed since 1980s. Young person, they're growing up thinking, this is the way it's always been. Okay? That's a very important point. This is the way it's always been. So when Reverend Jones, okay, gets up and he's saying something about gay marriage, your teenager who you send to Sunday school, church camp, all these kinds of things, is suddenly questioning, like, what's this all about? Why is he so much, against gay people? Because emotionally, he has connected to characters on TV, and therefore he is more sympathetic to the emotions that he feels when watching the television than he is with a very abstract concept like, well, God said this. That's very abstract. Kid's not met God. Kid just sees some rules, in the Bible. And then all of a sudden now, you're wondering, what the heck's going on? That's an example. Now, if you're listening to this and you're a gay parent and you raise your kids out there, and let's say everyone's gay in your community, they're raising kids, then that's going to be seen as natural and a norm and so forth. You might, you could even say, well, I just won't let my kids watch all these TV shows and then they won't feel pressured to become heterosexual. Okay? But nonetheless, television incorporates us into a certain way of thinking, whether we think it does or not. Whether, George Orwell stated, all art is propaganda. Okay? Now, other things, social media. Oh my gosh. And I'm going to come back to the effect of advertising here very shortly. Social media. Social media is constantly reinforcing this kind of downward spiral, I think, in the ideas that, you should read books, you should learn more about things. People quote memes. Memes are fun, throw them out there. I made one the other day, I was responding to someone's post and I said, and I took a meme generator of Gary Johnson and I just wrote Hillary's Little Johnson and I put it out there, and stuff like that. Memes are fun. But what's happening is the younger generation is starting not to want to read articles that go along with, you got the meme and underneath you have an article. They don't read the article. They just look at the meme and they assume it's true. And that's not a good thing. Okay? And I think if you had your kids out on this island and you taught them to read and they didn't have television and social media, they would do what kids did 200 years ago. They'd pick up a book with no pictures in it and they'd start reading and they'd start imagining things. They'd start thinking of these adventures and stuff in their own minds. They wouldn't need CGI. They wouldn't need big fireworks, and stuff like this on television. And they wouldn't need fancy, cute slogans on social media. And they also, when we're talking about looks, okay? If you're talking about looks, what would a person look like if they weren't terribly concerned with what other people thought? If people were just like, let's say it's a hippie commune and everyone's just kind of like, well, whatever. They don't put makeup on. They stay relatively fit. Hippies, I've very rarely seen hippies that are out of shape. Okay, usually they're like in really super good shape. And you wouldn't have this real obsession with what clothes you're wearing. You'd be wearing stuff that, oh yeah, this keeps me warm. Okay? Before consumerism in the 1920s, people wore clothes until they wore out. You bought stuff because you needed it. And then the economy was switched, in large part by Bernays and others, to make it a wants-based society. So you don't, it turns it, if you had arguments with your parents, and many of you did, where designer clothes first started coming in around the 1970s, and your parents may have been saying, why are you paying twice as much for this pair of pants here just because it has a little label on the back? And you're like, because that's what everyone's wearing, and if I don't wear it, then they're going to think I'm an outcast. That's consumerism. And so therefore, you wouldn't have that in a society where people are raised away from it. They would just, okay, this shirt keeps me warm. Everyone seems to think it's kind of a cool shirt. They wouldn't need a whole bunch of them. They just wear, the clothing wouldn't matter that much. Looks. Now, everyone, of course, it's from way back in history, probably all the way back to Adam and Eve, cared about looks. But society dictates what looks should be admired beyond the biological. Okay, we all admire healthy-looking people. It has to do with reproduction. Okay, if you see someone that looks unhealthy, then there's kind of this, I don't want to marry this person. I mean, it sounds really horrible, but that's part of the subconscious evolutionary psychology, that you may be like, okay, I love this person, but we won't have kids. I've known people that have married, one of the partners is in, has some sort of genetic problems or something, and they decide not to have kids, so they don't want to pass that DNA on. There's cases where maybe the husband has some sort of, something's wrong, and so they decide that she'll get inseminated by a donor, and they'll raise the child or children as theirs. But the thing is, just going beyond that, going beyond what, if people see a statue of David, they're probably not, there's not that many people around the world that would say, oh, he's ugly, or something like that. So what's going to happen if you raise kids without this, oh, you are who you are what you wear, then they're not going to be focused on that. And they're going to, their mindset is not going to be towards, oh, well, I've got to look a certain way to please people. Their hairstyles will be what they feel makes them look good when they look in the mirror. But they're going to determine most of that themselves, not someone else in a commercial saying, oh, you don't have the right hairstyle. They're also, and this is very important, they're going to have styles that's going to feel like natural to them and to the community. You won't have a division between parents and kids, the whole generation gap that kind of came in, well, when consumerism came in. What better way to sell things to people than to convince young people their parents are out of style? Okay? Clothes out of style, parents out of style. That separates kids from parents. Okay? The generation gap did not exist before consumerism. Repeat. The generation gap did not exist before consumerism. The people that sell you things knew that they could put a wedge between people, and then the young people are like, oh, I want to wear this, I want to do that, I want to be this way. Probably the same way, and we can see this in other areas too. In 1914, and again, I'm not saying this, that, or whatever about this, I'm just pointing out a fact. In 1914, up until 1914, most women had hairy underarms, okay? It was, the clothes covered that area, so, they had hairy legs, they had hairy underarms. It didn't seem to stop the men from being interested. In fact, the birth rate around 1900 was about 7 children per woman, okay? It didn't seem to stop men from being interested in their wives. Now, 1914, you had a push from, I believe, well, I'm just going to say, I don't have it right in front of me, but there was a New York based magazine that decided, let's promote the idea of women shaving their underarms. And they advertised it. They showed pictures of women dressed in elegant clothes with their arms up and it being cleanly shaven. And that caught on. And it wasn't much effort after that when, dress styles were kind of like, hey, let's be a little bit more daring and show a little bit more leg. Well, at first, if you're showing that little bit of leg, it's going to have a lot of hair sticking out. So then it came into, oh, let's shave the legs. And the thing is, if you had a natural society, maybe if the parents didn't emphasize anything, no one would matter. Okay? The girl could have, go out swimming with her, boyfriend in that community with legs that look like a lumberjack's, and he wouldn't care. It'd be just like, whatever. And most guys don't look at a woman's arms, which most women don't shave, and think, oh my gosh, she's got hair on her arms, or something like that. The thing is, as time has, that probably in 1914, there was probably arguments. There's probably young girls like saying, well, I'm going to shave, and their parents going, why are you doing that for? There was a sense of going with what the society said. Now, you look at, you speed that up into the future. I saw an advertisement just a few years ago. I don't watch much TVs, and this commercial, though, showed a razor company, and this big, muscular guy, he shaves his face, and then he starts shaving his chest. And this promotes the idea that maybe men should shave their chest as well. And that, I've read stuff that says that most men under 30 shave all or most now of their body hair. Not their legs, but, the other parts. Chest, underarms, groin. And women, full body. Maybe not the arms, I don't know, but everything else. The thing is, these trends were brought in by the media. It wasn't just suddenly someone just suddenly sitting there going, you know what? I think I'm going to remove all the hair that, came on when I was 13. And do it. And then they told their friends, hey, I shave everything. It was something that was actually promoted by the media. And I would actually say probably has more to do with, it has to do with porn. It has to do with the whole lingerie thing that started to come in the late 80s. Went mainstream. But also I'm sure the shaving companies are like, yes! Because instead of like guys just shaving that, few square inches of facial hair, all of a sudden now they're shaving as much as a woman does, and the razors wear out and people buy more razors and that sort of thing. Again, though, it's a social construct that's been created. Now, lastly, I'm going to deal with religion. What would kids be like if their parents are just giving them their own standard religion? Now, that's an interesting concept. I think the kids, if they never were confronted with other ideas, they would probably accept their parents' religious ideas pretty much. They may have some questions. If you're highly intelligent, you're going to be thinking things. Okay? And I know people that are highly religious, but they admit they think of, well, what if? And I know people that are atheists. They're like, well, there's times I think that, I worry there is a God, and that sort of thing. I think that's natural. But I think ultimately what you would have is a people that would be fairly religious. I think they might be a little bit more esoteric about it, because they'd be closer to nature. Humans are designed to be close to nature. Yes, we love the big buildings. When we show history pictures of like Mesopotamia, we don't show the farmers, we show the big pyramid-like structures and the walled cities that they had, and so forth, the grandeur. But ultimately, humans need nature. Okay? I think you could get rid of most of your depression. Yeah, and that's a good point. A lot of what creates mental problems in people today is stress, fitting in with what other people believe they should be fitting into, and, which creates rules, and then they get stressed about things, and they feel like they're not good enough, and then, of course, they feed on themselves, like, oh, I'm a bad person. They feel guilty about being a human being. And then, of course, many wind up having to take medications to make themselves feel better. Versus if you're living out in the natural setting, there could be biochemical things that could cause problems. But overall, if you're not worried about measuring up, if your parents have a religion that's not sitting there going, yeah, well, God thinks you're scum, but if you make it, if you follow the rules, you make it back to God. As long as you don't have that kind of religion, you're probably going to be pretty okay, and you're going to be a person that's going to be very nice. You're going to be someone who feels a part of things, a person that can sit out and look at the stars and have wonder. Most people I talk to nowadays that live in urban areas, they don't look at the stars. They don't think about it. I mean, if you live in an urban area, the sky is kind of bright anyway, so you don't see the stars. But they very rarely go out and actually try to imagine things. Anyway, I remember it was kind of interesting. I went on a trip with this guy one time. He was from the Middle East, actually. Very, very religious, a Muslim, very into thinking about things in it. And I'm not saying Muslims don't. I'm just saying that he was very into thinking about life and religion and man's place in the universe. And we went to Utah, and he looked at the mountains, and he just kind of went, how could anyone be an atheist and live next to these mountains? The awe of nature. It kind of throws you for a loop, and actually can increase spirituality. But it's going to, the children that would be raised more in this natural environment are going to be kids that are going to be more well-grounded, I think, and not feeling the anxieties of modern society. And you got to think, modern society, with all of its rules and regulations, Freud talked about the pleasure principle, where humans would be happiest if we could do whatever we wanted to do. But to fit into civilization, we have to give up some of that ability to be happy, because your view of being happy might conflict with your best friend if your view of being happy is to have sex with his wife. Those kinds of things. So we have rules and expectations. But modern society, we think, the 60s, just, let it all hang out. But the backlash of the 60s is now we are becoming more concerned with appearance and rules and all these other things. We've gone way back. I mean, the 60s are a distant memory. Most of those people from that generation now are just the most conformist and very rule-centered people on the face of the earth. Some of these ex-hippies now run the NSA, run the White House, run Congress. Okay? They're the ones setting up the police state. If you look at pictures when they were in college, they look like the people that the police were chasing. So the thing is that we have to look at what a person would be naturally, and then after that, even if we live in the middle of Tokyo, Japan, we can still strive to make life more natural, okay? And as long as we recognize it, and we just don't let our children, through osmosis, pick up all of these things from society. But that doesn't mean we just sit there and ignore it, because they're going to watch it anyway. They're going to turn on the TV. They're going to sit there with their iPhone, and they're going to be surfing stuff that would have been totally shocking for you to be looking at on TV, when you were a kid. The thing is, you got to find those opportunities to try to ground them into what a natural human being would be without those things. Sure, they're fun to do. I'm speaking to a microphone in a computer right now. I wouldn't be able to reach other people around the world if not for the technology. But the thing is, it cannot be a distraction from who we really are. And if it becomes a distraction, then it becomes that virus I was talking about. Because at that point, it is programming you. So you become the tool, not the actual stuff you're watching and the instrument you're watching it through. Okay? And someone else is programming how you should live, how you should see life, how you should feel your emotions. And of course, since that goes against what's really in you, mind, body, and spirit, that's going to create a very unhappy person that's going to be trying to find ways to satisfy and make those things go away that are bothering you. That's why we have a confused society. We have less people wanting to be in relationships, even though that brings a lot of happiness. They've become scared. They see all the negative. They've been raised on all the negative. We have people that don't know which way to go when it comes to their philosophy of life. We're turning into a people, and I'm talking about older people too. We're turning into like a meme in and of ourselves, a projected meme. That's not good. So again, I really encourage people, take an inventory of what you think a human being would be in a natural setting with a minimal amount of programming from the society. And then try to see if you can strive to recreate that in your home, in your church, in your synagogue, mosque, community, wherever it may be. Because that's the only way to kind of get past that Star Trek thing about the Borg, you will be assimilated. You will be assimilated if you don't try to counter the effects of all the stuff coming in at you 24/7. What I want to talk about now is the whole issue of the election between Trump and between Clinton. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of polls out there. I'm going to deal with an issue that is being overlooked, a psychological issue. That's right. I deal with psychology in most of the shows and connect it to politics. There are two issues that I think you can't poll very well. Okay? You can't really survey them that well, although you can get an impression. And those are the honesty that someone considers a candidate to be, and also the connection or friendliness that you can feel with a candidate. All right. So those are two issues I'm going to cover, but I'm first going to cover the honesty issue. Now, this is something that's been really plaguing Hillary a lot, and again, I'm going to make reference to polls here because there's such huge gaps in the idea of who is the least honest of the candidates, and Hillary wins on that one. Okay, people are thinking, I don't know if I really trust her. Even her supporters, let's say they're going to vote for her, it's like, well, I'm not sure I could really believe what she says. It's like when you're watching a corporate news show, and you kind of know they have a bias, and you're wondering what they're leaving out of the story. And this has caused a lot of people, of course, to go to independent media. However, a lot of people sit there with this, well, I'm watching this just to keep informed of what's going on, but I'm not sure I really trust what they're saying. Now, the thing is, your choice of news channel is far less important than who you choose to be the president of the United States. Okay? And the honesty issue. If anything, Trump is too honest. He really doesn't filter how he talks about things. He doesn't use those political words. Wasn't it Henry Kissinger, I think, that said diplomacy is the art of telling someone to go to hell and then look forward to the trip? It's all depending on the words you use. All right? Like the difference between leadership and manipulation means the same thing. You're causing someone to do something they wouldn't normally do on their own. Okay, now, the honesty issue. This was big before WikiLeaks and all the leaked emails and all the other things coming out. The whole, using a server that was, it just kind of gave you the impression that some 14-year-old kid in his basement could hack into, okay? The thing is that people don't trust the answers. And this is huge because, you see, people like honesty. They like honesty in their relationships. I mean, usually, a lot of people, their husband or wife says, "Honey, I got to admit something. I had an affair this week. I messed around with someone. I shouldn't have done it." I'm going to say, it's usually something that, even though it's going to really be, whoa, hurtful, it's going to be something that if it's lied about, if it's covered up and concealed, it's going to get really bad later when it's discovered. We also like honesty with our children. You want your kids to do well in school, but if you find out your third grader cheated on a test, got the answers from another kid, you're probably going to punish them, because you want them to feel, even though you want them to succeed, you want them to be honest. Okay? We cherish honesty. I mean, if the world is nothing but lies, then essentially you're going to have to be looking over your shoulder all the time. You're going to have to be investigating as to, do I really believe what this person says? Even your doctor, do I really believe them? Or are they just telling me I've got a terminal illness so they can make money off me? I don't know. The thing is, you want honesty. And the problem Hillary has is that it's really hard to establish honesty if people already don't trust you. Okay? Yeah, you could turn out commercials. What are you going to do? Hey, look, everyone, I know you've heard these things, but, I really am honest. Okay, that's not going to work. You can, really, there's, even if she, dresses up like George Washington and has an axe and shown cutting a cherry tree down and saying, "Look, I cut a cherry tree down," people aren't going to believe her. They're CGI. Okay, so the thing is, it's hard for a politician who has a perception of dishonesty to rebuild on being honest. Okay, now again, there's a lot of variables that can happen in this election. Lots of stuff can happen. Who knows what Julian Assange has in mind? Huh? Yeah, but think about this. You got someone, men and women, doesn't matter. But let's say you have a woman, okay? And she's in there and she's thinking it would be really kind of cool to have a woman president, okay? Women only got the right to vote back, I think less than 100 years ago. So the thing is, you got a woman president. But she's going to be sitting there, and maybe there's half the issues she agrees with Hillary and half she doesn't. And she's thinking, I'm going to vote for Hillary. And maybe she even got called on a poll and said, yeah, I'm voting for Hillary. But then when she's about ready to push whatever it is, depending on how you vote, the button or the pinprick or whatever, style of votes that you do, she may be thinking, wait. Psychologically, it hits, do I trust this person? And that could cause hesitation. Now, I think in a lot of cases, you might have people go, well, I was going to vote for Hillary anyway, and I told everyone I was going to vote for Hillary. So they vote for Hillary. There's going to be other people that are going to hesitate. And they're going to be thinking, wait a minute. And then suddenly their mind is going to start filling in blanks. Okay, she's been, she was kind of a co-president during the 90s. There was questions about Bill, all kinds of questions. That'd be hours of a show. But the thing is, many of those people are going to hesitate and maybe not even vote in the presidential election, or think, you know what, give Donald a chance and then vote for him. Okay? That is the internal psychology. That whole thing where if you ask someone when it's non-threatening and they can go, yeah, I'm voting for Hillary. And when they're in the booth and they're having to wrestle with their conscience, they may decide, I can't vote for Hillary. Okay? And I seriously don't know. And usually I'm pretty good at thinking of ways a person could skirt around to make some really cool commercials or do some sort of campaign thing. And I can't think of any that could change that. Okay? It'd be like trying to get, Jeffrey Dahmer, if he was still alive, elected, and just forget about the whole eating people thing. It just wouldn't work, okay? I mean, you could make a cool campaign, but you could not get him elected. Now, Trump, like I said, his handicap is that people think he's too much honest. Oh, yeah. They won't say it that way. But the thing is, he's got kind of that diarrhea of the mouth. He'll tell you exactly what he's thinking. at any given time. Okay? He thinks out loud. When you're behind a mic and you got 40,000 people listening to you, maybe not a good idea. Okay? And the media, the media hates you. The media is pretty much part of the elite. That same elite that goes to the country clubs. Oh, yeah. And if you don't believe me on this, you hear this and you're like, I got to go back. Just one thing about the media. I was looking at one liberal, and it was alternative media, but it was a liberal site. Has a lot of traffic. Okay? You probably heard of it. I'm not going to give their names. So, why drive up the traffic? The thing is, they were really critical of Trump for telling people to be critical of the media. They were saying, we need to trust the media. The media is there for a purpose. The media is there to inform us. And if you start not trusting what they're saying and bring into question their honesty, that could be really harmful. Well, that's easy to say if you're a liberal, okay? I mean, or you support things like the TTIP and these big corporate things, okay? I mean, Bernie Sanders people learned really quick, okay? The media is not your friend, okay? The Donald Trump people, the media is not your friend. They love Hillary. Why is that? Ask yourself sometime. Why is they love Hillary so much? I don't think it's because of her stand on abortion, okay? Now, the thing is, Trump, for all of his faults, people trust he's going to say what he means. I don't hear too many people say, I think Trump's not telling us the whole story. Okay? I think Trump's concealing his true feelings. No. I haven't heard that one. Okay? I have not heard that one. So, the honesty issue, I think, is going to be something that could actually connect to people really well. And when they get into that election booth, that could sway several percentage points away from Hillary, away from her normal demographic that supports her, and over to Trump. Okay? And I'm particularly thinking that would be true amongst certain groups like Hispanics, blacks, and so forth, who traditionally vote Democratic, but in this case, they may not. Okay? And, I heard recently that the president of Mexico said he would visit with Trump. You know what Trump should do? He should actually arrange that meeting before the election. Okay? Wouldn't that be cool if they could kind of clear up some differences and show a united front? That would be interesting. I don't know if Trump will do it, but it would be interesting. Now, the other issue is connection. Okay. I've said it many times on videos here. The elite, the idea that you connect to the elite, that, people watch these reality shows and they feel like, I really connect to this person. Or they watch a news show and they're going, I really like her. She thinks like I do, or he thinks like I do. Bogus, okay? The media people are reading off a teleprompter. All right? Oh, they may have their own little segment on a show where they're expected to be liberal or expected to be conservative. But I think a lot of them are just kind of like the whole thing with the, the music industry, where a star gets called in and she's got a certain, level of what she's going to do on stage, and her media executives say, we want you to do this in your next video series. And she looks and goes, you got to be joking, no way. And they're going, well, you're under contract. Okay, when do I try on the outfits? Okay, see, that's the thing. And so it's fake. But people still have that illusion that they connect. Now, a step further than that is that when people at least connect on I do believe, I agree, or I connect with that particular aspect of the person's personality. Okay? Now, here's an interesting thing. Hillary, she's a 1%er. Okay? Well, she's beyond the 1%er. Okay? Look up Hillary Mansions. Look up her daughter. Look up her salary and her worth and stuff like that. I mean, they're okay. It's a rich family. All right? It's a rich family. Now, Trump's family's rich too. But here's where you're going to get the difference. People don't really, at least I've never met one I mean, seriously, and I have most of my colleagues are liberal. No one's ever said, I really identify with Hillary. That's not good in an election when people say they don't identify. Because you add that to the honesty thing, oh my gosh, bad things can happen to you. Now, the thing is, with Trump, they do have a sense of identity. And he brings on his family. They're a good-looking group of people. They're diverse in many ways. They appeal to people. He looks like the kind of family that people wish they could have. Okay, everyone wishes they were rich and, had this wonderful family. All right? And that's an interesting aspect that could sway more voters on the days up to election and on election day itself in the booth. And that is the idea that they feel an affinity to the Trumps. True, the Trumps are rich and they live a different lifestyle, but there's still that sense of, hey, he's a family man. Okay, I think Mitt Romney didn't play that up enough in the last election. I think he really could have played that up more and got a lot more votes, because Obama did. Whenever he was starting to kind of hurt in the polls, he'd get pictures with his wife and kids, and people would feel like, oh, look at him, it's a family. Okay? When you see a family, you're like, oh, wow, that's wonderful. And Trump can do that. Trump has that ability. And so, other things. He may be someone who is way up. I'll throw out some more things. People say, oh, yeah, but he's made money with gambling, his casinos and stuff like that. Okay, how many people flock to Vegas? All right, come on. Is that going to hurt people? I've heard other people, telling me, but Trump's wife, she was naked in a picture or something like that. It's not going to be something that's going to hurt him in the election. Okay, his family, maybe they have this and that, and I'm sure the media's digging for dirt on all of his kids and so forth. Still, people can relate to that. Everyone's kids do things that you're like, oh, I wish they hadn't done that. You're not ashamed of your kid in the sense of, oh, that's not my kid. But it's going to be something people can identify with. And with Hillary, we've already gone through the whole thing with Bill. Okay? I mean, and there's a problem there, because that's your husband. Okay? That's your husband. And if your husband has all this reputation, a lot of it just now coming out, and it's like books and accusations and all this kind of stuff. Do you really want him as the first lady? And again there too, that's going to be like, oh, this just doesn't seem right. Bill Clinton as first lady. Now, these little psychological things are all of them, if used correctly by Trump, will ensure him that he's going to get a lot more votes than people are thinking that he has. Okay? But I don't see where it'll work for Hillary.